Tonia here, your host of The Alchemy of Me, where we navigate the anatomy of humanity through the lens of science and spirituality. Let's unearth the layers and unravel the systems in place that dim who we are and how we live and experience life. On this journey together, we'll weave in an eclectic blend of mind, body, energy, medicine, concepts, tools, and practices that'll nourish the seeds, the fire, that gold of intelligence that is you. This is an opportunity, your opportunity to reclaim, to rediscover, to transform, to alchemize you. The Alchemy of Me show starts now.
Wow. Hey, everybody. It's great to have all of you tune us in and turn us on. We've got a great show for you today. Tonia, so important to really have the conversation about this. And this is the vibe. What's your vibe? What do you have going on? Like, what's your mojo? You know, are you like the crab on the wall behind you, or are you like some fish behind me? What's the vibe? What are we putting out? What does it mean? What's the frequency? The good news is for you and me, the science around this in the past, I'd say 20 or 30 years, it's not that we haven't studied this before. We have. We really have. But, you know, you have some people that have come forward, and their coming forward has created a new dialogue, a new narrative for what this really means. If you're familiar with Dr. Emoto, you understand Dr. Emoto's work. If you're familiar with the rice experiment, for those of you that have not heard of the rice, RICE experiment, Google it and look at what happens when you talk crap into a bowl of rice. Tonia, great. Thank you for this. Let's talk about this frequency thing. What is going on? Why can't we get this?
It's thank you, first of all, Dr. Pat. It's always good to be here with you. So yay, Wednesday morning. Yeah, it's interesting because you think of people say, sending good vibes or sending energy your way. I mean, we kind of use these words interchangeably. It's all out there, but we a lot of times don't stop and think, what does it actually mean? And there is this, it goes back to, the science where it's Einstein, everything is energy. And I'm pretty sure that, there's many people before him, whether it was, his equation that kind of memorialized it in this idea of everything is energy. But it's the kind of energy that we bring forward. It's our vibe. It's our frequency. And so I love this topic because it's a moving target. We get it's an opportunity to shift. It's an opportunity to increase our vibe, our vibration. Because again, everything is energy, and how we show up in each moment is up to us, and those around us affect how our energy is. And so I love the idea of it's kind of empowering ourselves to just take micro steps, little steps. And it starts with just maybe it's a little more of an understanding. And that's kind of why I wanted to kind of lead with the science today of what it actually means. Like, what is frequency?
Yeah, let's start with that. Because I think once we hear what you have to say about it, people are going to be like, oh, really? Yeah. Oh, yeah, I got that.
Yeah, because we feel, it's that whole, it's the idea of awareness. A lot of times we kind of just move through our day, and we don't necessarily see how much we are affected by our environment, or just how we show up in the day, how that affects those around us. And so really, frequency it's a number of cycles. It's like how many vibrations. So you could see the more you vibrate, or the more vibrations, the higher your frequency. And so it is a measured term in science. It's something we use in science to quantify energy. So that's one piece of it. But then on the other side, it's like, okay, that's the science, but how does it feel? And that's actually the part that I think is the most important, because you're taking the science, great. You're taking the science and you are embodying it. You're feeling into it. What does it feel like to you? So if you show up in a room and you're feeling great, and then all of a sudden it's a, wah, wah, wah. Why do I feel like garbage now? Why has everything shifted? Well, maybe because your energy, your vibration, your frequency is higher in that moment. And then you come into this room and you are feeling into that frequency, that vibration, that vibe of the room. I mean, we've all felt that, right? We've all experienced that.
And we know it.
Mm-hmm.
We know it. I mean, it's like you can't describe it a lot of times. Sometimes it feels like a punch in the gut. Sometimes it feels elated and you got like little butterflies, right? Mm-hmm. Because you have a sense of that. But we don't really put it together in a way that helps us manage it, right? It's like we're random participants, mm-hmm. That seem to be going through this world without any sense or control of where we put ourselves, what the impact of that is, and why is that even important? I mean, is that too cynical for you today?
No, not at all. Not at all, because a lot of times we push ourselves into these situations and we force ourselves into these situations where we feel it and then we think, oh, there must be something wrong with me. Or what did I do? Like, why do I feel this now? And so it's like we take on this. And so then it's like we become a magnet for this lower vibration, this lower frequency. And then we leave and then it just, it wasn't a good experience. And then we kind of write it off. Like it's just what it is.
Yeah. But let's talk about the impact of that, because you see, for a really long time, I don't think we put the dots together. We didn't connect the dots. And the dots have to do with the science you're referring to. And let's talk about that, because it's one thing to just walk around and, let's say, get hit with a vibration or a frequency that doesn't feel good. It's not as if we even know how to let go of that or move on. What is the impact of these events, whether they be that great feeling that you get from that frequency or that not so great? What is the impact on that, on us?
Yeah, it's interesting, because I think there's still a lot we don't know. I mean, we can feel it, right? And so that's where it's this delicate dance between the science and the knowing yourself and feeling into it and kind of that awareness piece, and then the spirituality piece. I mean, it really is a voyage of discovery. And I think we're going to continue to learn more and more. If you do dive into this topic, if you go down the rabbit hole, there's a lot of conflicting opinions around this. People get really heated about it. And so that's where, at the end of the day, I come back to more of the, yes, we can use science as our foundation, but ultimately we all have the power to notice how it feels within us. And so I know for myself, when I walk into a room, and I would say I'm probably a little sensitive to, all of, the emotions and everything, that I'm going to feel it. And if I try to ignore how I feel or how it feels, I'm going to just take it on. And because this, how you feel there's an emotion, there's going to be an emotion attached to it. So say it's anxiety. And that's not really an emotion. So say it's, fear, just the fear of being in this place. So that's a low vibration feeling, that I don't want to feel in that moment. Right. And so because it is energy, you take that on, and then that takes place in your field. You take on that emotion, and then that lives within you until it's able to move.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not kidding about the rice experiment. That wasn't a joke. That's real. And that experiment, people have done it over and over and over again. And it really reflects what you're talking about. For people that don't necessarily want to understand vibration and frequency, there are real living examples. I mean, if you take a look, and certainly you can look this up, Google it, and you'll see what happens when you have three different bowls of white rice, and one of them's neutral, you don't pay it any attention. One of them, you just love it to whatever, all positive words every day. And the other one, you hate it. And it's like all like not good things. And at the end of, I think, 30 days, a month, when you see the results of that, I'm not quite sure how much more evidence we need about this. Right? I mean, if you watch 3 containers of rice come from the same source, treated the same way, and the one you're just hating all over turns green and black, that should tell you something.
Yes. And those are words that we use. Well, I guess, putting it in just the fact that you're talking about rice. And then if we consume that, we put that in our body, we're creating, that's a vibration. That is the frequency of that rice we're ingesting. So it's, thinking of where our food comes from, the quality of the food that we put in our bodies matters. The quality of the water we put, the air that we breathe, all of these things, our food is energy. And so if you're eating a Big Mac versus you're eating a salad or anything, that you grew in your garden, those are going to have different vibrations. Those are going to fuel you in completely different ways.
Yeah. So let's talk about this for a minute, because for a really long time, we didn't want to have a conversation about emotions. Right. I mean, I worked in corporate America, and even today, your boss may say something like, you know what, leave your emotions at the door. Okay. So that's a thing, right? But emotions play a very important role in our overall health, in our overall well-being. And we have the science now, we have the case studies. How much of a role do they play? Tell us about this.
Oh, they're big, right? And I too think this is another area where we're just uncovering how much of a role they do play. Thinking of you suppress your emotions, they don't get to move. So it's like you say, like, how does that feel? I don't want to feel it. Okay. So that lives within you. And so coming back to like the Joe Dispenza, I want to go there for a little bit. If his work is incredible, it's very scientific, but there's so many nuggets. He's such a brilliant man. But it's the idea of like our thoughts create our reality. And so if we're creating this thought, or we have this thought, and it creates a charge in our brain. So we're up here. And then from there's a chemical reaction that happens. And from that reaction, it creates an emotion or a feeling, right? And so if we're thinking of, I don't know, Pat, like an example of so we're walking into a room with a bunch of people, right?
Yeah.
And we come in and there's that charge that happens in the brain, the thought, and then from there, it creates an emotion. And the emotion is fear for whatever reason. And that fear is, this isn't maybe the first time I've been in this situation, right? I've been here before.
Right.
This happened the first time when I walked into my first day of 4th grade. And I'm the new kid and everybody's staring. And that little charge and that emotion, because I didn't feel that when I was in 4th grade, that's coming back. And I'm feeling that in that moment as a 42-year-old walking to that room, because there's a magnetism that happens within your body. They're like, oh, I know this feeling. I don't like it. And so it's like this danger. I don't like this feeling, but I don't know how to get it. It's almost like you're repulsed by the feeling, but you don't know why it's so intense. You're just walking into a room.
Yeah.
So that's what happens when we don't feel our feelings. We don't let our emotions move, as they live within us, and we get to play with them all over again. Anytime there's a situation that kind of brings us back to that moment.
I set up my study here in my remote office, and I set this up. And I was walking the other day, and I was looking at my little bamboo plant out in the front that I've had forever. I've had this was given to me as a little bamboo shoot. You know how you get them like teeny weeny, like they're about this. I don't even know how big that is. There's like nothing really on it. They're like just stalks of bamboo, right? And so I put it in water and I let it grow. And it's been very important to me. It's been symbolic to me. It's been that the old saying is, look, you need to be able to not kill your plants. You need to be able to let a plant grow, Pat. And if you cannot get bamboo to grow, there's something like, seriously, bamboo grows in water. If you can't get bamboo to grow, you need to go get yourself a couple of sessions or something. But the reason I'm bringing it up is this. Now, my plant's not in this room. And I thought about this the other day. And I'm surrounded by plants. I love plants. They tease me in the office all the time. I got plants everywhere. They're just like amazing. But a long time ago, someone said to me, if you talk to the plants in a nurturing way, in a kind way, they will thrive. Now, I now know that's true. But when that was said to me, I just looked at the person like, but is that true, Tonia? And let's talk about the science behind that. Because vibration, frequency, plant growth, bodies, staying young. They say people that defy aging do it not through only what they eat, but they do it through their mindset. So how does this all come together? And I know that Joe did a lot of work on that. Dr. Emoto did a lot of work on that. From where you sit, how do we demonstrate to people that it's science, but it's also humanity? And these two things give us information so we can change our lives, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's that we're empowering ourselves, right? It's taking back, and it's what we're putting out into the world, and choosing to, to be the individual, to be the human that is nurturing the plant or the rice or the water, however the words we use. And I'm still wondering too, if it's more of the words or if it's more of the energy that's put off from the words, because there's still, you're producing energy. You don't have to say anything. And we could sit here for an hour, Dr. Pat, and just stare at each other. And we're going to still create an energy, right? And it's going to shift depending on what it is inside of us that we are working through.
Yeah.
Or looking at and exploring.
It's an interesting phenomenon. And I hear this all the time. We do shows like this, and people have their animal friends. Like it's a bird, or it's a dog, or it's a cat, or it could be a pig. I don't care what it is, right? So I hear this all the time, and it happens a lot. If you get on a call with Kim, who does our banners and graphics work, you will hear her bird in the background just going berserko in a good way. Other times, all of a sudden, people can't keep their dogs out of the room. Their cats are like all over the screen. I now know why that is, though. You see, when you're doing or having a conversation like this, there is an energy and a vibration to it. You're educating people, you're helping people, your heart is open to do this. You're coming from an intentional place, which Wayne Dyer talked about constantly. But you're coming to a show like this, and you're coming with a specific energy that's going to be opening. Maybe it's a higher frequency, yet it's educational and informative. And these animal friends, they know this. They get it. They probably don't know a single thing about what you're saying, but they know that whatever's going on here, they want to be part of. Isn't that, I mean, it's an example, but it's a real example. Isn't that exactly the way the law of attraction works? I mean, if a cat, a bird, and a dog want to be around this and want more of it, that's an attraction factor, isn't it?
It is. It's the magnetism of it. So it's, if you're constantly in this kind of negative headspace, you're going to bring negativity into the headspace. If you're on the opposite side, I mean, you're going to create this environment of more of the loving, blissful state. It's a weaving, and it's an opportunity too. And it doesn't have to be, these aren't massive shifts that you need to make. It's kind of choosing how you want to move forward. Okay. So maybe it is that every time I, wake up in the morning, the first thing I do is turn on the news. So maybe it is giving yourself an extra 5 minutes to reflect on what kind of day you want to have. Maybe starting with gratitude for the things that are there. And then starting there and then allowing yourself to move forward with your day.
And this is what I love about it. And really such a reminder, Tonia, from you to everybody here, that it is more than holistic. And we talk about it, we use the word holistic. It's more than holistic. It's actually quantum. It's a quantum energy. It's this idea that we've heard over and over and over again, and people have demonstrated, yet it can be elusive to us. It could escape us in the times that we need it, right? Like when we're thinking about going to the dentist, we have 2 or 3 different ways we can think about it. What are we choosing? There's a reason that the study on self-fulfilling prophecy has been done over and over and over and over again. And it really does talk to what we're talking about. That one study that was done pointed so much information, but never connected the quantum field to it. That's what you're doing. Let's take a short break. But before we do, how do people find out more about you? How do they connect with you? All of the above.
Yeah. So connect with me through my website, www.toniajohnson.com. That's it.
I'm going to tell you this. When we come back, okay, here's the deal, everybody. You ready for this? I have felt at different points in my life really lost. How I got here is a conversation for another show, but it was filled with these twists and turns that Tonia is talking about today. It's filled with an understanding by experimentation and by doing. And when we come back, that's what Tonia is going to walk us through. It's how is the quality of our lives related to the choices that we make in our environment. For example, somebody contacts you and said, "Oh my gosh, did you hear about Joe passing?" And you say, "Yeah, it's sad." And they say, "They were your age." What are you trying to say? Let's take a short break, everybody. When we come back, garbage in, garbage out. We'll be right back. Hey, everybody, welcome back. And just so you know, I get to have this incredible experience. I get to walk with Tonia Johnson here, the Alchemy of Me, Anatomy of Humanity through the lens of science and spirituality. Today, we're talking about what's your vibe. And there are a couple of different parts to this. It's not just what's your vibe, but it's also why your vibe, right? Because knowing the what doesn't help us understand how to change it. And I think that's what you're going to be talking about next, right? Because here we are. And before the break, I was saying, look, can we actually have a way to change our vibration? Can we change the quality of our life by literally focusing on what we're talking about today, our vibe.
Yeah, so it's having a different kind of experience, right? I mean, that's ultimately what we're talking about. And wanting and the awareness piece, that's part of it. That's kind of laying the foundation. And then it's maybe looking at the tools that we have accessible to us that can shift us into maybe a higher vibration, or just enjoying life a little bit more. Maybe that's another way if the science is not, if the science doesn't resonate. But ultimately, I think back to, so I want to share an example, and then maybe a short breath exercise, actually. Yeah. So I'm trying to think of how, this is a while ago. Are you familiar with Mark Divine or Unbeatable Mind?
Yes.
Okay. So I had the fortunate opportunity to train with him when I lived in California, CrossFit. And then I actually went through his coaching program, The Way of the Seal. I mean, he's an incredible leader, incredible human. And his tools that he uses to train Navy SEALs are kind of woven into some of his coaching program. And so one of the breath techniques that we used, that I still use daily, that I weave in, I want to share it because this was back, maybe 10 years ago. I started using this practice, and it's the box breathing, or 4-part breath, right? But so I want to share with you how I wove this in, not even knowing how powerful this method is. I was using it multiple times a day. I had a lot of anxiety, driving a lot back and forth in the corporate workspace. I would use it when I would be driving to work, but just became part of my routine. However, it was still something I had to consciously do. I was choosing to do it. And I remember one morning, super early in the morning, I get an email, right? It's just an email, but it's from a client. Super terrible energy. Every time I got an email from this client, it just brought me to a place of, oh, whatever I say, it's not going to be well received, right? So I'm responding to something that hasn't even happened yet. So I sit there though, and I get this email, and I start writing, I start responding, and it's flowing. I'm not in my head. I'm not thinking about all the different things, whatever. And then what I notice is that my body employed box breathing. I didn't choose to do it. It was like I had taken this thing that I was making a habit to help me. It was a tool I was using, that I was practicing. And then my body said, you know what, that feels really good when she does that. So let's do that. Yeah. It became an automatic function. And so I bring this up because this is how powerful some of these tools can be, how the breath, where it's something that each of us have, and we can play with it. And if something doesn't work, if it doesn't feel good, then you try something different. Yeah. So, yeah.
Look, these are practices that, let me just, one example, athletes have been using for years. The top of the top. If we, somehow we think they're superhuman, they don't have emotions, they don't get scared, they don't get nervous. That's not the truth. But they have so many tools, like the one you just described, right? Which separates those that really can excel in a very, let's just call it easy and flowy way. It doesn't mean you're always going to make that 3-point shot. It doesn't mean that. What it means is when you do make that 3-point shot, everything is aligned with you, right? Everything is right here. Everything you've ever learned happens in a nanosecond, of that confidence in your preparedness. Now, in everyday life, we've never needed this more than we do now. So many bits of information. I was, it took me an hour to get through my emails this morning, and I check them every day. And I'm thinking, how do I unsubscribe from some of these, right? Information that I'm not even interested in, right? That comes over. But if I can't do that, what you just described is is a remedy. What does it take for people to learn this? Because if we learn it, then we can practice. If we practice, then it can become second nature, right?
Sure, sure. And I think it's this idea of taking little baby steps, right? I mean, it's the micro changes, the micro shifts that we introduce. If we try to make massive shifts, I mean, we've all tried diets where we've changed everything, we throw everything out. We fill our refrigerator full of this new food, and a week later we're done. So it's this idea of just taking these little shifts, introducing them one at a time, and knowing that this is not a sprint. This is a marathon. Your life, you want to integrate these things and see to what fits, because what fits for me is not going to necessarily fit for you, Dr. Pat, or anybody else. So that goes back to what we kind of started talking about, was getting to know yourself. So checking in with yourself, it's that awareness of what feels good. If there's resistance to it, maybe getting curious about why there's resistance. It could be something not wanting to shift, or maybe it is that it's not the right tool for you in that moment. So maybe trying a different exercise, maybe backing off a little bit, maybe trying something, maybe it's listening to a different type of music, sitting down, and really just honoring that uniqueness that is each of us, not forcing. And so that's where I struggle with this one size fits all. There's a program for everyone. I mean, seriously, no. Nobody knows you better than you. Nobody. And if somebody tells you otherwise, they haven't experienced life as you. And so you have the opportunity to empower yourself, as we all do. And so, yes, I can throw out 15 different things that you can do, but it's up to you to find the ones that really, really work. And so whether it's breathing, maybe it's getting out in nature, connecting with nature, helping others, being a kid, like allowing yourself to be a child, play with Legos.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, I think this is really important, because what we're now talking about is, what can you do? And this is, for those of you out there, this is not for you. You're probably thinking, I don't need to know any of this, but that's not really what we're saying. These are things you can pass on, pay forward, and help other people. Because let's start with this. Let's look at the minor shifts that we can do to increase that vibe. Mm-hmm. And they're minor shifts. Mm-hmm. And I love that you said, it's not a one size fits all. For somebody like me, I'm really quite an introvert. And so the things that I might do would be very different than somebody else. So, for example, if I want to get out of my headspace, the best way for me to do that is to watch some benign, mindless, or some kind of visual thing, whether it be a movie or something. Even if it's for 15 minutes, it's an automatic switch for me. It changes things. What else changes it? Some mornings I just think I really want to stay in bed. I have been up 4:00 every day this week. I don't want to get up 6, but why am I getting up 6 on Saturday? Because I'm going to play a sport that I love. But the getting there is what takes the effort. And sometimes don't we have to take the effort? So this is one of these things, right? If you could talk to it, it requires us as an active participant to help create the shift. Now, once I'm up and I'm showered and I'm out the door and I'm picking up donuts for everybody, I am well on my way to about, I'd say, 5 or 6 hours of just complete bliss. But there are days where you think, I'm not going. I'm not going to do it. What can we say to help people about how they can shift by doing some simple things.
Yeah, that's a tricky one too, because if there is something underlying that can keep you in bed all day, that's, so it's calling in. I mean, yes, we have the ability to make a choice in that moment. And it's okay too to ask for, it's good to ask for support and ask for help. I mean, it's that calling in that community that you're describing, like having those people there. So it's, maybe it is, I don't want to go today, but I know how good it's going to feel. So it's, reaching out to your network, and then also in that moment. So that's the mind shift piece. So looking at, okay, instead of focusing on how not good I feel now because I don't want to get out of bed, let's look at how good I feel in those 6 hours that I'm going to be in that state of bliss. And so it's trying to magnetize into that space instead of into the current moment. So imagining your future. So it's imagining you in this state of, it's no different than you mentioned the athlete. They're not imagining themselves being in bed while doing their 3-pointer. They're imagining themselves at the 3-point line. And I'm not a sports person, but the 3-point line, making that basket.
Exactly. That's it. I mean, but that's really what we're talking about. And sometimes it's hard. One of the things I've learned is you really can buddy up on this. But I want to talk about something we're not doing enough. And it's very easy to do in most places that you live. And that's being of service. That's volunteering. That's doing something to get it. When I moved to Seattle in 1992, and I moved to the greater Seattle area, I was really lost. I had been rejected from every school I had applied to. I didn't have a job. I had just left the job after 24 and a half years. I really knew I wanted to go back to school, but I just was lost on Capitol Hill with my beautiful dog and my Harley Davidson. Now, people would say, really, what are you complaining about? Well, I didn't complain about it, but I was really lost. And it got to the point where I wasn't going to come out. And I had met a couple of people in the area, and one of them knocked on my door and said, okay, take a shower, get dressed. You're coming with me. And off we went to the chicken soup brigade. In Seattle, that is a place where you cook for people that HIV, AIDS, and you deliver meals. That may sound silly, but that right there, to get out of your space, get out of yourself and do something in service, whether it's cooking a chicken or delivering meals or spending time with people that just want their hand held. It doesn't matter what it is. That idea of contributing your time to helping another, that is a powerful vibration, right? Or not?
It is. And I think it, at a very altruistic level, I think of it as we are in this place of just overconsumption. We're just taking. Yeah. Whether it's, we have a bad day, what do? We go shopping and we're consuming more. Does it actually make us feel better? Or when we're in this place, what you're talking about, it's this selfless giving where it's not the, I'm going to go do community service, or I'm going to do something for somebody else so I can post it on social media or tell people. It's truly coming from this place of, I just want to give back in, it's almost like a rebalancing. It's a bringing back to like a right relationship which is where we can feel just this, it's a selflessness. It's giving back to humanity, giving back to nature, giving back to the collective, however you want to put it. And it just feels good. And when things feel good, it's going to raise our vibration. It's as simple as that, our frequency.
It's so funny because, let's just take a little simple thing. I caught myself with the blower. The leaf blower, you blow the leaves with the leaf blower, that machine, that thing. I love my leaf blower. It's so seriously, it's like, right? You're like blowing the leaves. It's like, okay, I'm blowing it. It's instant gratification. And it's so funny because I'm blowing the leaves, right? And I'm, getting things cleaned up here for the spring. And I don't realize I'm not just blowing my leaves, but I'm blowing everybody, both of my neighbors and like the neighbor across the street. Mm-hmm. So I'm just like blowing my leaves. I didn't think their property line is here, stop. What's fascinating about that was a certain energy which brought the people out of their homes, which noticed that I blew their leaves. Mm-hmm. And it changed the relationship that I had with my 4 neighbors here. Right? I mean, a simple mm-hmm. act, because I was so obsessively focused on doing a good job with the leaves, pretty much cleaned up the neighborhood, right? Mm-hmm. But a simple act like that generated a reaction and a response from people that I barely had spoken with in the years, 3 or 4 years I've been here. Mm-hmm. That one response triggered another response. And I think that's the science of what we're talking about. We're talking about one act can trigger a like act. Now, the reverse is also true, isn't it? And mm-hmm. that's part of the curse and the blessing of looking at vibration, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. It is. It's you reminded me of my family thinks it's hilarious, but when I bring my dogs to the dog park, I have 2 70-pound dogs, and the joy when they know they're going to the dog park and we're going, it's out of control. And we get there, it's just as much for them as it is for me, right? And so we go there and it's like just being out there, and it's a 10-acre dog park, right? And so it's just this huge space and there's a lot of people, lots of dogs, and every day is like Disney World for them. And you can just feel that energy. The dogs are happy, but I love going to the dog park because there are so many people there that is their moment to connect with others, where I just love being able to make that connection with others. It's the same with going to the grocery store and looking at somebody and just saying, how are you doing?
Yeah.
Just connecting. Yeah. And then, it's not a, how's it going? Or it's this disingenuous feeling. No, it's like really looking at that person in the eye, and because you care. And then it creates that vibration. It creates that energy. And then sometimes they light up and they're super excited. And other times it doesn't turn out so well. So that's kind of like gets at what you're saying. Yeah. You have those interactions, but man, when you're able to connect with somebody, have those conversations, and you just feel that synergy where it just kind of lights you up, it lights them up. I mean, it's worth it.
Yeah. Right? It's amazing. I get asked about, since I started to do meetings and shows from here, I get asked about my background, and people want to know what that is in the background. I always think they're talking about the fish that my acupuncturist mom painted, or beautiful watercolor, but they're not. They're talking about the other little speckles on the wall. And they always ask me, and I said, oh, that's glass art. And they said, well, where'd you get it from? And I said, well, I made it. I made them. And they just look at you like, you made those? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, well, what does each of them mean? Okay, to your point now, Tonia. My answer is, each of them represented a feeling the day I made them. And they each represented an essence that I was trying to create. Now, for most people, they're good with that. If you're a triple Virgo, you want to know every detail of every color and every angle. My best friend is. But in the end, this is what we're talking about. I mean, we lay down an intention to create something, whether it's our words, whether it's emotions, whether it's caring, but we lay that intention down. And it's very clear what we're putting out. The point of today's show is, man, you don't want to put out what you don't want to get back. And I think now in the closing minutes we have, you have a kind of tip or tool to share with us, because I don't think any of us wants to put out an energy that doesn't feel good coming back.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah. And so just, I mean, at this moment, whether or not this could just all be everything, you can just take it for what it is. But ultimately, I actually want to just share that the 4-part breath, the box breathing, because I do think it's something that we can employ. You don't have to be into meditation. You don't have to be into any kind of breathing. You can do it anywhere. And you can do it at your office with your eyes open and nobody even has to know. So let's just do that. Let's take the last 2 minutes to just do that together. And if you want to close your eyes, you can. If you're driving, great opportunity to even do this while you're driving. It helps you, maybe it'll help you get a green light versus a red light. So just shifting our vibration together. And when we do that together, I mean, that's ultimately what we're doing here. We all, whether you're tuning in live or a year from now, we're all shifting our vibration. So wherever your breath is, just releasing all the air from your lungs. And then we're going to inhale for 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold your breath. 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Inhale. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Hold. Last round. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Hold. And then just returning back to your natural breath. Just offering this as a tool to shift your vibration, your frequency. You can use this before you go to bed. It's this beautiful tool, or it actually will bring you down, and it can actually also energize you. So wherever you're needing to go, just allowing this to be a tool if it works for you.
Well, thank you for this today, because this is this is what I call a baseline conversation. And what I mean by that is that this sets a platform. It's a foundational piece of how we want to live our lives, and understanding that there's a mechanism that we can actually control, to create this sort of quality we want to be surrounded with. And yet you provided us today with not only a way to understand it, but a way to do something about it. Thank you for that. Please, tell us how we can find out more information about you and what you do, and what's your personal message. What would you like to leave us with today?
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Pat. My website, www.tonia.com, TONIA, ToniaJohnson.com. I have just remember, you are unique just as you are, and you're here for a reason. And we each have our own path, our own journey. And so it is for each of us to find our way. But there's support. There is, we are all here to support one another. If you would like to work with me, again, reach out to me through my website. And I do actually have a course coming up here, a program coming up next month called Calm the Inner Storm. And we'll be looking at a bunch of different tools that we're going to be using to to actually identify and release these emotions that maybe we're holding on to, and to calm kind of some of that heaviness that some of us are carrying around right now.
Love to unload some of that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tonia, so much. Thank you for that. And for all of you out there, understand that when we're talking about vibration and frequency, it's not elusive. It's within your grasp. It's right in front of you. It's something you could do and change and shift today. It's what Tonia really walked you through. Please go back and listen to the last part of the show if you like, and start to put something in practice that will give you some relief, because that's what this is about. It's about unloading the burden that most of us carry throughout our lives that is so heavy. And yet there are so many things like Tonia shared today that can be done to give you some relief immediately. Tonia, thank you so much for all of that. Thank you for tuning us in, turning us on. Sierra, thank you for pushing all the right buttons. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to The Alchemy of Me, where we navigate the anatomy of humanity through the lens of science and spirituality. For more mind-body energy medicine concepts, tools, and practices to nourish the seeds, the light, the fire, that gold of intelligence that is you, tune in every first and third Wednesday at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on transformationtalkradio.com. For more information about me and my work, please visit toniajohnson.com. That's toniajohnson.com.